Hi guys, and welcome back to Scale Motor. Today we're carrying on with the Ducati 916 Senna. We're going to be focusing on the frame, the swing arm, and a couple of 3D printed parts. So we're just going to be getting a couple of bits off the sprue first. Now it's time for a bit of part cleanup. Just coming in with the side cutters and a hobby knife just to cut away those sprue gates, and then we're going to be scraping away the seam lines, paying careful attention to reference because some parts on that swing arm are actually meant to be raised. And it was around this point I decided that the chain in these Tamiya kits just isn't great, so we're going to whip out Fusion 360 and knock up our own. I've done a few changes in Fusion 360 now, and I always forget the best method, but we got that in the end. This will be available on my 𝐼𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐵𝐷 page soon. I just need to modify the design ever so slightly. I also decided that I wanted to do a new shock, so we used some reference from some 𝐬𝐿In's shocks, and we knocked one up quickly in Fusion again. This will also be available on my 𝐼𝐡𝐴 page, but again, just needs a little fettling before release. I'm using the FlashForge Photo 3D printer. It's not bad. It works well. I do have another, as you can see by the side, but it's still taped up from when I was moving home. I'm using water washable resin, and I've got a little bucket in the garden because the weather was nice, and I was washing it in there, so I didn't really catch a video of that, unfortunately, because I can't find my tripod. But once it's done, in the washing gear to cure. Then this part, I originally thought, well, these slits have got to be holes, haven't they? So I started drilling and cutting, and then I double checked my reference, and they're not. They're not actually holes, they are just little indents. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Always check your reference. But for those of you interested in the process, we just drilled loads of holes, and then we came in with our hobby blade to widen, to connect those holes to make them into slits, and then we used some sandpaper and a UMP customizable sander just to smooth out the edges. There were quite a few seam lines to remove on this frame. On a round part like this, I like to use the back end of the hobby blade just because it kind of gets the seam line, and it seems like it misshapes the part less. If you use the actual blade, it is quite easy to misshape the part, so just be careful. So this is the kit suspension. I wasn't really a fan, so we decided to 3D print some new pieces. This is the top part. Design is based on an 𝐬𝐿In's shock, and this is the bottom part. I was quite pleased with how it fit. Obviously this is what I'm doing here, I'm just test fitting because I wanted to make sure before I committed to painting that it was actually going to work. There we go, fit quite well on the first try. Quite happy with that. Just test fitting the reservoir, and as you can see, it's the kind of one edge was a little bit misshapen. This can sometimes happen when you're 3D printing with resin. The part which faces the build plate can sometimes come out a little misshapen, and that's generally because resin kind of pools there, and a bit of light bleed can cause that to actually cure. And here we go, it's a 3D printed chain. There's a couple of little things which need modifying. I had to drill out these holes slightly more, so I'll edit that in the file just so they fit a lot better. And when it came to putting it actually together, I realised that the stud on those bolts needs to be just a little bit longer, just to help everything kind of fit together nicer. This sprocket carrier again was printed with the flat part towards the build plate, so again it was slightly misshapen, so we just had to sand it a bit to get it to fit flush to the sprocket. And then came the fun part of removing the supports. And there we go. We got that in the end. Again, test fitting. It was slightly, ever so slightly too short. I think I maybe missed one link in the design, but I will go back and modify the file before sending it out. Now, we didn't need to for this step, but I really wanted to do the wheels just because look at these discs. I really wanted to have a play with these discs. So, a nice hard surface, and this isn't a super sharp hobby blade, but I would suggest a sharp hobby blade for cutting the PE parts off, and these are quite thick as well. But then we're just using a stone in our 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 rotary tool just to remove those gates, and then we're going to use the actual kit discs as a mount, so we can mount these up, give them a spin in our hobby drill, and then we can use any kind of sandpaper you want to leave grooves in the disc just to make it that little bit more realistic, just to make it look like the discs have actually been used. The coarser the sandpaper, the more pronounced the grooves will be. I find, just some subtle grooves work fine, just because they catch the light and you can see the reflection. As we were mounting the parts up, I realised I hadn't even glued the chassis together, so we're just coming back to glue the chassis together. When there's multiple connection points like this, I tend to glue one end first, hold it in place, and while that's setting, then we can come in and glue the other end. A bit of masking was needed. We had to mask off the outside of the discs, and although it looks quick and painless here, probably about, 5 or 6 tries just to get the correct size. I didn't have my calipers to hand to use to actually measure, so I just kind of eyeballed it. Didn't work well, to be fair. And here's all our parts, all mounted, ready for paint. Now we're doing a lot of metal colours, so I wanted to prime in UMP gloss black. I wanted a gloss black colour and a primer, and this fit the bill, so UMP Gloss Black is shot through UMP Apex airbrush, 0.35 needle, about 20 psi, and we're just going to slowly build up the coats, and then on the final coat we're going to go a little bit thicker just so we can use the self-leveling properties, just so there's enough paint to do that. And then to prime the wheels, I know it doesn't look like it, but it is a UMP product. It is, I think it's the pink or the red oxide primer, one or the other. It's just whatever I had to hand. I had loads of UMP primer bottles given to me by Paul when I'd realised I'd totally run out of primer and I didn't really have much money at the time, and he gave me quite a few. I've still got loads, and yeah, this came in really handy. For the gold centres of the wheels, alclad polished brass. We turned our airbrush down quite a way to about 8 psi for this. For the alclad stuff, I normally use my 0.2 needle UMP Apex airbrush, and then slowly build the paint up with alclad metallics. I do it for this as well. This is a stand, which is basically the alclad stuff, and this is the chrome, and we're just gonna again slowly build up our layers until we get a nice shine. Again, a stand by Amos. This is basically alclad, and this is the steel. Again, slowly build it up, low but 8 psi. This bottle's almost out. I'm going to need to pick up some more. It's going to be a stand because I don't know if you can get alclad still. I haven't checked in a while. But with the dull kind of metallics, it doesn't really matter too much if you build it up slow or fast. You get the same result, really. I'm just saying, I'm not saying just hose it on, but I'm just saying it can be a bit more forgiving. Next up, some Tamiya titanium gold, and this is just going to be for the main part of the frame. It does get masked off later on. Spray some dull aluminium up the back. And now for my favourite part about masking parts, taking the masking tape off. A quick comparison with the kit part. They are miles different, and if I could get photo etch brake discs for every single model I done, I would. Now there's a bit more masking to be done, and this stuff was really finicky. Just needed to get a sliver of masking tape, about, I don't know, 0.5 mil. I didn't really measure it. Again, didn't have my calipers to hand. I just kind of eyeballed it. That piece looks like it's going to be too thick, but it wasn't too bad. And then it was quite finicky getting it on, but we managed to. The outside wasn't too bad. When it came to masking up the inside chain area, that was the worst. But we got that in the end. A couple of bits I needed further masking, just like the caliper. The caliper carrier on the back needed to be dull aluminium, and then the caliper was actually gold. And as the chain masking, we actually managed to get it done. And then a bit more finicky masking just around the very edge of that frame. We just want to make sure we get the whole of the back end, including where the bolts actually connect. First things first, I don't know a ratio, but this is clear orange and clear yellow. Just mixed them in the colour cup until it looked kind of gold, and then we went over some of the chrome parts because some of them needed to be gold. Again, slowly built it up. This is kind of my favourite method for doing like gold parts. Just clear yellow and clear orange mixed, and then over a nice chrome base. Next up, painting the wheels with Tamiya Pure Red LP7. Pretty straightforward. We're back up about 18 to 20 psi, and yeah, we're just going to slowly build the coats up. We're coming back in with the polished brass. I really like this colour. It comes out really, really nice. And there was just a couple of bits we needed to paint. That being the caliper and the chain. And then the dull aluminium again, this time for the subframe. And again, the best part is taking the masking tape off. Quite pleased with that. It came out quite well, if I do say so myself. We had quite a bit of detail painting to do, and it is hard getting shots of up-close detail painting. Just because the way my camera mounts, it would be right in front of my face, and I have to kind of look through the camera, which isn't easy. That's what I'm doing here. As you can tell, I'm a little bit off at first, but I get that in the end. It is quite hard looking through the camera. You haven't really got the depth perception. I've also got my optivisor on for the detail painting, so it's up close. So yeah, that's why we sometimes opt for the wide shots like this and on the previous one. Most of the detail painting that had to be done was on the shock, and we did also use the same colour to paint the sprockets. Now for a bit more photo etch fun. it's time to do the washers on the discs. Now there were 48 of these, and to say that it was a bit laborious would be an understatement. I mean, once the annoying part of cutting it off the actual fret and removing the connection points was done, once all that was out of the way, it wasn't too much of an issue, and I did quite enjoy it. But I opted to cut all the pieces off and then mount them on a piece of silver wire, silver rod, really. Get them all lined up so all their kind of connection points are at least facing kind of the same direction. Pop a bit of tape on the back to keep them in the same place, and then we come in with the stone on our rotary tool and ground away those connection points. This would have been so annoying if I'd done it one by one, but luckily this worked. Gluing them on wasn't as straightforward as you see in the video. I did try 4 or 5 different methods, and we settled on this one in the end. As you'll see later on, I did modify my stick slightly. I made it a bit shorter because it was annoying me, and I put a bit of tape on the back end so I could push against the tape, just to seat each of those washers. But it was a bit finicky. Once we'd done the front, we'd come back to put the back ones on using the same method, and sometimes I'd knock the front ones off. Yeah, it took a while. I've done it over 2 days because I did get annoyed. But yeah, we got everything on in the end, and then it came to these Allen head bolts which hold the discs in place. I forgot to account for the paint on the shafts, which is why you see me scraping away the paint off the shafts of the bolts, and then placing them. But there were 12 of these to do, and we had 20 given to us in the Blue Stuff kit, and we ended up using all 20 because these are small and they go flying if you hold them too tight with the tweezers, and with a wooden floor with gaps, slight gaps in between the floorboards. My bet is they're all down there. Now I could have mounted these wheels in a drill and used that method to sand the tyres, but I like to do it by hand. That way I don't have to mess about making some sort of mounting solution, basically. So yeah, we sanded by hand. We also sanded the sides of the tyres slightly, just leaving a little bit of shiny rubber around the edge, just to kind of simulate what people would call chicken strips. For those who don't lean their bike all the way down to the edge of the tyre. I just think it adds a bit of visual interest, just some slight differences in sheen, in texture will, I don't know, just little bits and bobs like that I think can really help with realism. Next we were panel lining the recesses, just to bring out some of that detail, and then add in this brass tube, which I don't think I've built a kit from Tamiya which has a brass tube for where the forks connect before. So that threw me. Don't know why it's there. Maybe easier molding process. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's good. I haven't actually tried to fit the forks yet, but I'm guessing they'll slide nicely. Then we just come to start popping things together finally. Now in the next video I'm going to go back and change these if I can, or mask them off, some very delicate masking, and repaint them, because as you'll see later on in the video, some were mounted upside down, some were mounted the other way around, and the ones which were mounted the right way up, the paint came out a lot better and you can see a difference. As you can see, you'll probably see two of them are a lot nicer looking, and 3 of them are a bit darker. At first I thought it was panel liner, but when I tried to remove it I could see that it wasn't. It's a shame, and I'm only kind of now noticing it watching back in the video, which is quite annoying because I could have rectified it in time for the video, but it'll be done in time for the next video, and I will record it just so you guys can see exactly what I did. Now it was a bit fiddly to fit everything in the frame, just because you have to connect the suspension linkage up first and then get the screws in place and everything, and the frame will be coming off just because there's a couple of things I've got to fiddle with, and a couple of things I want to do before putting everything together. But with that, I'd say we're done for this part. Flashing up a couple of photos. Quite happy with how this is going. Enjoying the build so far. Really loving those discs for some reason, and those wheels. But the chain came out okay, and so did the suspension. Like I said, just needs a little fettling before releasing the files. There you can see a bit of a close-up of the suspension and the chain. You can see the individual links and the teeth from the sprocket. But yeah, really enjoying. I hope you guys are enjoying watching as much as I am building. But thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Have a great day, and I'll catch you next time.